Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel, it's Cynicalex, and I finally updated the meta tier list for update 7.7.5 in Marvel Future Fight. So let's jump into it, because although there have been no new characters and only a handful of new uniforms, a lot has shifted in the meta. So we got to cover everything, starting off back in December with the Spider-Man update. That's right. Now I've gone ahead and changed a few things. I moved a few characters around as far as Shadowlanders going into rework category, territory. But otherwise, we're just talking about Black Cat, Kingpin, Spider-Man, and then more recently, Betsy Braddock, aka Psylocke, Colossus, Mr. Sinister, and then most recently, Emma Frost. So 7 uniforms in total for 7 different characters. Well, 8 uniforms for 7 characters. Spidey was lucky enough to get the 2 synergies, and we essentially from there have a pretty large meta shift. So we'll start off with the lesser important ones and move our way up to the most important ones, because I know that's what you want to see. So I gotta extend that watch time so that the channel keeps growing. We keep getting new subscribers, new fans, new community members, etc. By the way, I usually say this at the end of the video, but I'll say this at the beginning of the video. If you're enjoying this video, smash the like button and leave a comment down below. It helps the algorithm to push this video out to new viewers. So starting us off with Black Cat, really didn't get the rework that we were hoping for. She got a very meta uniform for specific game modes. So she gains the brand new tag for strong leadership, which is that crown, and then the muscle, which is dispatch mission god, and she pairs so well as a villain with a villain leadership with both Loki and Mephisto. However, besides dispatch and dimension rifts and the occasional ABX and squad battle, I mean, those are 4 different game modes, but outside of that, as only a leadership slash support, Black Cat has no other value for Marvel Future Fight, and that is coupled with the fact that she did not get any upgrades to allow her into other content like DRX and World Boss Legend and story mode fragment farming and that sort of thing. So that, I think, was a little bit of a letdown. It's also in some ways a bit of a niche upgrade, because although it helps some really strong villains and Loki's super popular, the game modes aren't necessarily the most popular. ABX is pretty popular, but squad battle, not really a big sell there to boost Bullseye's damage. Yeah, right. And then for dispatch and dimension rifts, you can get on without her in dispatch, and not that many people, I think, are taking dimension rifts too seriously to need Black Cat. Coupled with the fact that it is a seasonal uniform, I think this one really didn't hit on too many characters' radars in that sense. So that's a bit unfortunate. We'll have to see if she gets a rework. As far as being a character, a standalone character as well, I gotta say that I think they kind of dropped the ball a little bit compared to White Fox's paywall uniform rework, and even Enchantress's summer uniform and Silk's. Black Cat's just doesn't really do enough for her as a standalone character. Another unfortunate, miss, a non-banger, as I would say, is Colossus. And these are basically the only 2 sort of disappointing characters, I would say, of the last 7. But they sort of ring out because Black Cat's never been good, and Colossus has only really ever been a support. However, he's still a support, and Colossus basically represents the worst of the artifacts, in the sense that not only is his artifact terrible, but it's the only way for him to get a heal. So it's like necessary and bad. When something is necessary and bad at the same time, it's like, taking disgusting tasting medicine for some sort of, sickness that you have. I don't want the sickness or the medicine, man. Just get me out of here. Just get me out of this Colossus hellscape. So that's the unfortunate thing with Colossus. I really don't have too much more to say about his rework. I actually moved him down. This is what I'm going to say. I moved him down from meta-ish to borderline, because here's the thing. We're getting other characters, Emma Frost, Spider-Man, that are better and better for PvP. So as more and more strong characters come into PvP, the ability to waste 1 or 2 of your slots on a team for someone like Colossus or like Ebony Maw or what have you is shrinking, right? Because you can't afford to solo an entire team of heavy hitters anymore. Back in the day, when you only had to worry about Jean Grey and a couple of others, absolutely load up on those 1 or 2 best characters, right? Yeah, your Sentry can totally solo the other team because there's only 1 other good character on his team, which is Sentry. But now you've got Doctor Doom, Spider-Man, Gilgamesh, Cersei, Wolverine, Emma Frost, Hela. I can make a song out of it. There's just so many characters. So Colossus is actually losing value, on top of the fact that his new uniform is a kick in the pants. It's actually not very good. So that's all I have to say about that, but that's sort of the unfortunate side of the last couple of mini updates. And then the last sort of semi-disappointing character here, Mr. Sinister. He did get a bit of a buff with the latest Emma Frost patch where they gave him penetration on his 4th skill, but he still doesn't have enough, mainly because at this point, any character to be considered meta for PvP or even, you know, meta-ish for PvP almost by default needs to have, I mean, they have to have pretty decent stats and pretty high HP, but they have to have iframe ignore. It's almost a prerequisite. Not having iframe ignore allows you to be punished so hard by characters like Doctor Doom, who just chain very long iframes in 5 and 4. And although Mr. Sinister has other cool things, like he can summon a clone of you, and he can, you know, buff his attack by 140% and give himself a crazy heal, and summon a giant Mr. Sinister behind him, like Marvel vs. Capcom, and blast you, and now that skill has penetration, which is very cool. It's not enough. Now, I do think because of the fact that his artifact gives him the immortality that Hela, Wolverine, I was going to say Wella, that Hela, Wolverine, and Null have, so he does have that immortality. So I do think a max build for Mr. Sinister could be borderline good enough for Timeline Battle and probably pretty good for Alliance Conquest. So I did give him both the hammer for PvP and the puzzle for max build. However, he's still going to be outshined by literally other characters in this video. So that's why I couldn't put him any higher than the bottom of meta-ish, literally on the doorstep of where Colossus is in the top of borderline, right? There's not too much of a difference here between Mr. Sinister. I mean, there's a bigger gap here, I would say, between Crescent and Colossus versus Mr. Sinister and Invisible Woman or Spider Woman, but it's still not that great, and his PvE performance is also not that great for a self-buffing lead and all these other things. So yeah, unfortunately for Mr. Sinister, he gets a much-needed uniform after years of In the Darkness. Years, okay, year and a half or whatever. But it's just not quite enough to push him into the meta. So, we got through Colossus, Black Cat, and Mr. Sinister. Those are all of the characters that I honestly don't think are going to see extended rotations on most players' rosters for very meta content. Now we get to the rest. Spider-Man, Kingpin, Emma Frost, and the new Betsy Braddock, the old Psylocke, Captain Britain. These 4 characters I think are meta god / meta defining, and we may still see them move up depending on how things, you know, continue to shake out in the game, especially when it comes to Emma Frost. So starting us off with Captain Britain, Betsy here, massive upgrade for Psylocke. We're going to call her Betsy from now on. She gets crazy damage increases, crazy defensive increases with HP, and she just becomes a force for PvE content. She's able to use a CTP of Judgment really well, a proc not so well, but she basically revives what was basically a flatlining mutant class who were being held up by Cable and Rogue and not much else. However, she's already starting to be overshadowed by Emma Frost, so I'm not going to spend too much more time, unfortunately, talking about Betsy. As much as I would like to talk about Betsy, Emma Frost just seems like a better, more refined version of her, which is kind of a bummer because the only thing that Betsy really doesn't have much of is, well, she doesn't have any defense, and then she doesn't have any PvP value, so that sort of hurts her stock overall. She's basically Human Torch. She's basically like a mutant version of Human Torch. You know, high burst damage, survivability with a constant heal, but with a skill-based heal, but otherwise not going to do much for your roster in sort of PvP content or content that requires more defenses and that sort of thing. Emma Frost, on the other hand, the latest character to get a rework, and the one that you see here in the game preview, honestly, surprising a lot of people, myself included, her top to bottom changes have made her a perennial threat for basically all content. You want to take her into PvE, you want to take her into PvP, you want World Boss, Shadowland, Timeline Battle, Squad Battle, ABX, I don't know, you name it, DRX, she claps hard. She's got Reflect on her artifact, and that's very unique, but otherwise her kit is amazing. She's got healing, she's got accumulation, she's got iframe ignore, burst damage, sustained damage, chain hit damage, easy, super easy rotation with the 354, and yeah, and AoE, gorgeous animations, just top to bottom. She's got everything you need. She's got massive bulk with her passives giving her guaranteed dodge, and HP. So she can clock in well over 200,000 HP in PvP when you build her. My Emma Frost is clocking over 1 million in Alliance Tournament, which is wild. So yeah, she's basically just the best, she's the best blast mutant in the game now, that's for sure. And she's one of the best overall Blast characters. Because as good as Sharon Rogers is, as good as Moonstone is, and they're very good, they have no PvP value whatsoever. On the flip side, Emma Frost is making pretty much every other PvP character absolutely terrified. She may not be as good in 3-on-3 scenarios, but 1-on-1, there are very few characters who can consistently take Emma Frost down. She's just way too tanky. In Diamond form, 85% damage reduction with 40% max HP and 30% ignore a guaranteed dodge. Good luck. Good luck taking that down. So yeah, Emma Frost, honestly, Emma Frost just combines the best of both worlds. She's an amazing PvP character and an amazing PvE character. You just have the luck of choosing which one you build. And I put her just below Cersei for now, but honestly, thinking about it here, I think she deserves to be higher than Cersei, because here's the thing. Cersei is sort of like Emma Frost in the sense that she's a very good PvE character, and she can also be a very good PvP character, and Cersei has the additional benefit of having the passive buffs for herself and for the other members of the Eternals, and some of them are extremely meta, like Thena, Makari, and Gilgamesh. However, Cersei's PvP value 100% depends on you having her artifact. She cannot function for PvP without that revive. And she gains so much more from the revive because she's a transcended character. She's basically the only good transcended character in the game besides Corvus that has a revive. That's very important to know, because when tier 3 characters die, like Doom, etc., they don't get to pop their tier 3 skill when they revive. If Doom could pop his tier 3 skill when he revived, he would retake the throne as the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, because that would just be beyond busted. But he can't. Cersei and other transcended characters, they can, which is kind of broken. So the fact that Emma Frost can almost go toe-to-toe with Cersei without the artifact in play, I think makes Emma Frost the better overall character. And Reflect is always going to be meta. Look at Silver Surfer. He hangs on for months after he's already been past due and sort of expired, just because if you're not careful, if your character is on auto and you're not watching the game and they pop the wrong skill that doesn't have an iframe, you just got reflected and you just died, right? So yeah, that's kind of how it goes. Second to last here, we have Kingpin, and although the combat class has looked better and better in recent months, Kingpin basically came in and shook up the combat villain meta. He's number 1 for ABX by a large margin, and although ABX doesn't matter to every player, you have to respect the fact that Kingpin was able to eclipse Apocalypse with a budget build. That is humongous, and his rotation is super easy, and he's kind of slept on as a pretty solid World Boss Legend character. He's got a great heal, very easy rotation, tons of bulk, an excellent leadership, right? Giving all, I think, combat villains or whatever, HP and physical attack. Very, very good overall character. Unfortunate that his uniform is full cost and that it also is only available during holidays, but I think Kingpin is a little bit undervalued in the current meta of the game, and if we don't get any other combat villains for the next year, you're going to see a lot of people rushing back in 2022 December to buy that uniform, because, you don't want to build Apocalypse when you can just build Kingpin. Right, and he's also really cool, and he's blinged out. So yeah, very, very cool character. Really happy to see him as a sort of meta god. And then we come to our final bus stop station, or station stop, Spider-Man. I kind of hesitated to put him at the top of meta defining, because that would mean, well, the top of meta defining in the speed class. I'm not saying he's the most meta defining character in Marvel Future Fight, although he may be. That's an argument for another day. But I put him ahead of Makari. I don't know why I put him ahead of Makari. You could probably argue either way. I think Makari overall is better than Spider-Man for PvE content, and she certainly has an easier rotation. Maybe not a more consistent rotation, but certainly an easier rotation with less timing involved, as you could argue. It's close, but yeah, I do think she has a little bit of an easier rotation, and she has a little bit more of a consistent heal. But Spider-Man's impact in PvP, which not many people saw coming, myself included, is undeniable. And I say that knowing that there could be a resurgence of Makari in PvP because of how strong some Blast characters are getting now. And I say that knowing that you guys maybe haven't fought many PvP Makaris, but ask some Alliance Conquest heavyweight juggernauts, like ask MF Doom. Makari's no joke in PvP, especially if you can put her with Gilgamesh and Cersei. she starts to clap mad cheeks. Like, she's very, very sneaky strong. She has debuff immunity on her second skill. Really, really nice stuff. But Spider-Man is sort of in his own world for PvP. He's got basically everything that it takes to be a pest. And he's not going to go toe-to-toe. You know, he's not going to last a slugfest. He can still be pretty easily countered by some staples like Wolverine, just because he has the type disadvantage and Wolverine is just super hard to kill. But if it's not those specific characters, he one-taps pretty much any villain that isn't using Molecule Man's leadership, and he gives every other character a headache now that his webbing has immunity, like it ignores immunity. And he does all that with the rare ability of being a hybrid build, and that's why I put him at the top of meta defining for the speed class. You can't build your Makari for PvE and also have her be good for PvP and vice versa. Spider-Man breaks that mold, and Mighty Destruction is just so delicious on him, and it frankly does put him in a competitive scenario versus most other PvP threats. It may not put him right at the top. He's still going to lose to certain combat types. He may still lose to certain beefed up universal types, etc. My Emma happened to kill one that had a regen, but sometimes it's a coin flip. Sometimes if Spider-Man just gets off that 3 cancel 5 in PvP because of a lucky rotation, you kind of just get clapped, and you have to respect that. So Spider-Man just comes through and, in my opinion, has the biggest impact we've seen on the meta in a long time. And the thing about meta that I think a lot of people, not that they forget, but it sort of slips their mind, is adoption. Adoption is, and I don't mean like you go to the pound and you adopt a pet or whatever. I mean how many players are actually playing a character. Because no matter how good Wolverine is, if people are just tired of the same old story with Wolverine getting a bad uniform, they're not going to believe me or any other content creator when we say, yeah, this new Phoenix Force Wolverine is the real deal for PvP. They're not going to believe me. Just like a lot of people don't believe me that the Defenders are really good for PvP, but they are. But the thing is, everyone wants Spider-Man to be good for PvP. So as soon as they got a little whiff that he was good for PvP, people just started running for the gates to slap their Spider-Man on their team. So you're seeing so many teams using Spider-Man, and that is really what meta defining means. If he shows up and he has an impact, and people have to start thinking now, I think I got to build a combat type for PvP because, like, I'm tired of losing to Spider-Man. That's exactly what it means to define the meta. So yeah, hit me up in the comments down below. Let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.